Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.
Okay, the first photo. Okay, this one, so it's a photo of you sitting on like a galvanized step of sort, galvanized steel step or zinc or whatever. You're wearing a blue gurney of sorts. You have a wrist tag or something. It almost looks like an MRI because it's like a big donut around you, but it's not quite an MRI because the donut seems to be empty. So it looks like some kind of chamber, some kind of place that people go into, and it looks like an industrial space. And yeah, like it's quite. You're looking right at the camera. You're looking right at the photographer. You have a nice smile on your face. But yeah, so there's this kind of academic looking or studio or lab looking place around you, and it's this big sort of machine. So what is this?
Oh no, you nailed it. It's a atmospheric chamber, and you were close because it does look like an MRI, sort of, because it has a donut opening.
Right, right, and so I mean, it's like you're looking at the photographer. So it looks like you're either mid experiment or something because it looks like you've been actually a test subject.
So this was actually after I was inside it, and then we had some people inside there, and they all wanted photos, and I realized that I've been working with this chamber for like 6 years and don't have a photo with it, so I went for it.
Okay, because you seem really happy, but I mean, is this after you were kind of experimenting on each other to give yourselves like decompression sickness or the bends?
Oh no, luckily it's not. um, so I just chose that photo because it summarizes the past like 6 years of my life. Um, because that is, yeah. So I'm sitting in front of like a hyper slash hypo baric chamber, and it has two levels. The level on the top, we can do high altitude studies, so we replicate being at a high altitude by sucking air out, and that's why the machine, you could kind of see it's all steel because it has to deal with huge pressure changes. And then we've got a little pod underneath the main chamber that we can flood with water and do dive studies. And then if we want in the upper chamber, we can also pump a lot of air into it to increase the pressure, to replicate being underwater without like being underwater.
Oh, okay. So I mean, this is essentially to replicate extreme dive situations, like we're talking bottom of the ocean style, or I mean, maybe super high altitude.
Ooh, I need to. I'm gonna quickly Google it now because I don't want the lady who runs the chamber. Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble, so I'm on her website now. So we could do extreme pressures of 305 meters or 100,000 feet of altitude, or 30,000 meters or 1,000 feet of seawater.
Right. Okay. It's kind of funny how Canadians mix and match between imperial and metric. This is at the university, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's at SFU in Vancouver, and that was part of the reason why I came to SFU to do my PhD, because it's the only civilian research chamber in Canada, maybe even North America, because the military has a bunch. But the cool thing is that we can do both because it's either dive or altitude chamber.
Nice, nice. This is what I really love, right? So I go out there and I meet you because of, what we do for exercise. And then I find out you're doing your PhD in a really kind of esoteric topic. So what is the research question that you finally landed on?
It's a super specific question. So there's two ways you can replicate being at high altitude. You can either go inside an altitude chamber, or you can breathe like a gas mixture that has less oxygen in it, equivalent to being at high altitude. And the main difference between both of them is just a change in pressure. Where if you go in the altitude chamber, there's a change in pressure. If you breathe a low gas mixture, you can do that at sea level, no change in pressure. So I wanted to see if that change in pressure affected the brain at all. So for my study, I had people go in the altitude chamber, and I would just measure their brain for 5 minutes while they sat there, and then also for 25 minutes while they did an attention task. And I did this at sea level. I did this at sea level while they breathed the low gas mixture, and then I did it when we simulated an altitude of 13,000 feet inside the chamber. Now, the reason why this is potentially important is military pilots and, well, I guess all pilots in general, some of them take part in something called hypoxia awareness indoctrination, where we make the pilots hypoxic so that if they're ever in their airplane and there's a sudden depressurization and their instruments, for whatever reason, don't tell them, they can feel like, oh, hey, I'm feeling kind of wonky. I know this feeling. I'm hypoxic. I have to fix it. Now, these hypoxia awareness courses, they're done with either form of hypoxia, either inside an altitude chamber or having them breathe a low oxygen gas mixture. And we're still not certain if they're fully equivalent. So I just wanted to see if the change in pressure affects the brain in a noticeable way. And I guess that's kind of the gist of academia. When you're at the PhD level, it's so
Right, exactly. Like it's so specific and so I don't know, like quite like channeled and focused. So in terms of your results, how wide and how impactful is what you noticed?
um so my results are kind of, I guess the main issue with people comparing both is some people find differences and others don't. And also depends on the altitude.
Did you get the results already published?
I had I recently had one paper published a week ago for the 5 minutes of them sitting there not doing anything. And I found I didn't really see a difference between both forms of hypoxia, which, kind of makes sense. 13,000 feet really isn't that high for altitude studies. Um,
There you go again, 13,000 feet. What's that in meters?
oh, I think it's roughly 4,000 meters. Yeah. I mean, I've done it so many times, but every time I'm still.
Okay, what? I can hear you clicking. Are you checking? Are you
Yeah.
checking? You're such an
Um,
academic. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. Listen, I'm just giving you a hard time. But basically in doing your work and in doing the studies, and then your goal really is to publish. And so, do you know if what the impact factor is on the journal that you got into?
um, I'm the wrong person to ask for that. I'm just, this study has had a lot of problems. So this was the first publication of my PhD, even though in total, I think I worked on it for 3 or 4 years.
Look, man, don't let me give you a hard time. Respect. Like the work that you're doing is a tough and lonely road in a way, and so you have all my admiration.
Yeah, like that, everything is kind of ended near the end of my program because this study just, it took a long time to get ethics, to figure everything out. It took a long time to find participants because no one really wanted to go inside the altitude chamber, and then just analyzing the data was difficult. So now, like, I'm trying to quickly publish 3 papers summing up this big experiment.
Okay, look, I put you on the spot, but okay, so what is, for somebody who's outside of the domain, like what is the application, or where does this fit in terms of its, I don't know, I don't want to use the word utility, but its use within like beyond academia?
Yeah, like my research topic, it's really applicable for the military and Air Force because they do these hypoxia training sessions. And if they don't need an altitude chamber, it's a lot cheaper and safer to do. So they're really excited. Like I presented my results at a aerospace medicine and engineering conference a couple months ago, and everyone, well, not every, like a lot of people came to me afterward and were saying how cool my study is, how interesting it is, how useful it might be in the future for developing these programs. While like a year ago, I went to another conference. I was just like a neuroimaging fMRI conference, and everyone ignored me. No one cared about my work, and I had a couple of people just say like, "Oh, what's the point of this? Like, why did you do this?" So
Well, I mean, ultimately, it's because what you're doing is so niche.
yeah, exactly. Like my topic is just super niche, only pretty much.
Well, it's I mean, it's always amazing to me to see how people develop and grow and where their interests take them. And I mean, you're a total weirdo, but it's like it's important work.
Yeah, thanks. No, and it was also I didn't say, but I work part time in the chamber, like testing medical equipment, and sometimes we do those hypoxia awareness courses where I'll have pilot students from BCIT, sometimes like Canadian Air Force pilots come in, and we'll make them hypoxic in the chamber. So it's been, yeah, by the past 6 years I've been like research in the chamber, working in the chamber, just
Yeah, you're like the crazy guy who just hangs out in a hyperbaric chamber, who just plays around with people's oxygen levels.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, how about we move on to the next photo then?
Sounds good.
So, is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So, if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.